All right, guys. Thank you for joining us. As always, everybody's starting to get signed in. My name is Austin Robertson down here in Pierce County, joined as always by Cassandra Marks down south in the Vancouver, Portland area. And today we're just going to be going over some things that are kind of happening in our neck of the woods and talking about how that's affecting life where we live, work, and play. First of all, Cass, I kind of wanted to just talk about the real estate market in general. There was an article that was released by CNBC. And it talks about what is happening with home prices as mortgage rates fall. Now, obviously, we've seen a little bit of an uptick again over the past couple of weeks, but prior to that, we saw a little bit of a decrease in interest rates. And I feel like the average home buyer and home seller was still rallying from the media being insanely in shock and awe versus being a little more in the know. Of course, the media is always a little bit behind. Is that kind of the same sentiment that you've been experiencing?
Well, first of all, I'm tired of the clickbait articles. I'm tired of people being uneducated and listening to the news about stuff and what's going on. It's so much fear mongering lately. And yeah, so I would say like 2 weeks ago, I'll tell you about what happened to mine. I wrote an offer for some clients. The house was 454. We wrote 460 and didn't get any. And of 10 offers, 10, we were sixth. The house sold, no contingencies, like all of them were waived, and 95,000 over ask.
Wow. That's a lot.
And a lot of that stems from, and what I've noticed in talking to agents, at least in my market, is that when those interest rates dropped and they went below 5 and they were like, and you hear the news, the lowest they've been since October, all of a sudden everybody's like, I want to buy a house.
Right.
And then we see multiple offers and it goes crazy again. And then was it last week? I think it was, or the week before last week, the new jobs report and the inflation status came out and it was bad. And so rates went back up again. And I talked to my lender actually just earlier this morning and he's like, yeah, there's been a huge decrease in the last week for applications.
Well, I think, my opinion, just look, similar markets, right? I think this is a really good indicator that it is a good time to make a move, because we went from buyers not moving at all to holy shit, there's a panic, right back into multiple offer situations.
Like that.
Home prices started to uptick again. So the same guy that was sitting on the fence saying, I think I'm going to waited. And then we just got a quick flash in the pan of what's going to happen if there's a little bit of relief. So
there's so much, Austin, you and I have talked about it so many times, knowing where you come from to know where you are. And we've said, we're 5 million short on single family homes building nationwide, probably at least 5 million. It's gotta be. And it's not going to change, not going to change overnight. And so as soon as those interest rates drop just a tiny little bit, people are just going to jump on it. And the thing is, if you can afford a mortgage with a 6.5%, 7% interest rate right now, do it. Do it. Refi it, figure it out, because it's better to own a home than to not own a home, because it's just your income is so much more fixed. Because I know, I think you said King County, when I've talked to you, I think you've talked about King County maybe has some rental laws, but Oregon, I mean, on average, they're only allowed to increase their rent usually is about 9.9 to 10% annually. Well, because inflation was so high, it's 14.6% this year. And my friends just got their increase and it was 14.6%. Their apartment is now 2-bed, 2-bath, 700 square feet, is now all just under $3,000 a month. And they don't even live in downtown.
Kind of seems like that regulation's coming back to bite them in the ass.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's up, Ryan? Good to see you, buddy. Glad you're out.
So it's just this huge everything right now. So like, if you can afford the house now, do it. Yes, there is a low amount of inventory on the market, but honestly, like I I'm so desperate for my clients to find a home in this. They want this one very, very specific neighborhood, and it's just got low inventory. I mailed letters, and I'm gonna go door knock next week because they want this specific neighborhood. Nothing else is gonna be make them happy.
Do you feel like this is an indicator of an early spring surge for our markets?
Yeah. I mean, it pumped really quick here when that interest rate went down and it was all over the nightly news and like CNBC and like every article. I mean, I think I got like 10 articles in my email about, oh, interest rates are the lowest they've been. It just, I went from like my buyers going to like having like 10 sending me listings, and they're like super desperate listings. Like, I'm like, I know that's not going to work for you.
Right. Good question, Ryan. I think me and Cass actually are pretty well aligned on this. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I really believe that it depends on your particular situation. I know there's agents and brokers all over the internet, TikTok, everywhere. They're just saying buy, 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 buy. But I think right now, with rates being a little higher, the best thing to do is to review your situation. Have you outgrown where you're at? Is where you're living affecting work? Has someone died? Has there been a birth? Is transport time becoming a pain in the ass? Like, Ryan, you know as well as I do, if you need to drive from, let's say, Tacoma to Seattle, that is a miserable experience every day of the week. Cass just did this last week. So
Friday was awful.
Yeah, I think if you're having those types of experiences, then now is actually a really good time to buy. And I think if you're in that scenario and you don't take advantage of it, then when these rates decrease, sort of like this little flash in the pan that we just had, you're going to have a foot up your ass because you're going to be so far behind. And there are going to be buyers that are very, very qualified, being very aggressive. And we've already seen these multiple offer situations. If I could buy and not have to fight 12 other couples for a damn house, that's when I want to do it. Cass,
Yeah. Absolutely. I had a couple VA buyers that were unable to buy in the last couple years in the market because they just didn't have the cash to do it. And so I said, now's the time. And we had a long discussion about, they understood, and they're like, I can afford it. I know that this is the time that I can get in the market and get and actually get something. And so they knew that this was the best time for them. They understood that the interest rates are a little high, but they looked at their finances and said, whatever, I need this, make it happen. And we did it. And we actually have an inspection right after the show today. So, yeah.
Well, and so speaking of being the right time to buy, we just saw this report that came out from the Business Journal where Microsoft is going to cut another 617 jobs here in the Seattle area. And this is on top of the ones they did before. Oh. And I know what Microsoft is doing here, much like many of the other companies, is they're realigning their employment based on revenue. So, a lot of the people that were employed that were working on things like the little Microsoft tablets and stuff has gone away. A lot of those different things. So they've hit about 10,000 jobs now. Thing is, their severance cost has cost them like over $800 million to get this done. I know Amazon's looking at another 18,000 people. Google's in there laying everybody and their grandma off as well. So kind of what I want to touch on here is what kind of shifts these create in these hyper end tech markets when these tech companies begin to let people go. So obviously it sucks. If you're working at Microsoft and you're one of those guys losing your jobs. But one of the things I've also known about our generation, in particular, the millennials, is it kind of seems like we don't really care. Have you noticed the trend of a lot of these tech guys going and doing like side hustles and freelancing? And it seems like they're really moving more into like the space of sort of entrepreneurship as they're losing these jobs. And that, of course, then keeps them from being required to stay inside of the city, essentially.
Yeah, one big thing too that you got to keep in mind is like back in the day, like in our parents' day, like you would get a job and you would stay there, almost your whole life. Well, that's not the case anymore. I mean, I can speak for myself when I look back at my corporate job history before my years as a realtor. Um, I switched jobs about every year and a half. I either got a new position with the company I was at, or I went to a new company because I wanted to, grow my income. And so what do? I do this for a year and a half, become an expert in it. And then I solicit that to get a new job for more money. Like people back in, our parents' time, they would just get raises. They didn't have to worry about this crazy, stupid inflation. And like, mom could stay at home, dad could afford the house and the kids and all this stuff on its own. It's just, it's a change. And so now with millennials, like a lot of them have been shit on a
Yeah.
lot when it comes to school loans, school debt, all this, that, and the other, and they're just kind of to the point where they're like, well, fuck it. Like just a fuck another thing. Like I'll just go get another job. Like I have all this experience that I can leverage from this company. And like people that work at Microsoft have a lot of sway in the industry. Like, hey, I worked at Microsoft and I did this. Like, okay, you just walk in somewhere else and bump a bunch of other people out. Ultimately, like that's kind of how it rolls. As for housing and how that affects that, these people are a little scared about selling and buying houses right now because they're like, crap, am I on the chopping block next? I mean, if Microsoft's on their second round of layoffs, I mean, if I was living up there, I would not be looking at another house.
No, especially being employed in one of these companies. I think like I've said this before. I feel like some of these companies have went so fast both ways. They hired super fast. They're laying off super fast. I think there's going to be a fine rebalancing over time. But I also look as a business owner. So if you're, hopefully if you're watching, we have more business owners on the show as well. I look at some of just the strategy. Like Apple's not laying off anybody. Okay. But Apple grew so much slower during the pandemic than Microsoft did, than Google did, than Amazon did. Apple took their time and they were very strategic and they weren't very reactive. And what I think is funny here is we're seeing the same companies that were reactive on hiring are now also being super reactive on just letting people go. They're also being super reactive in like the commercial real estate space. Microsoft is letting go of like 2 million square feet of business space between Bellevue and Issaquah, piling everybody into Redmond, letting leases go on places where they had huge strongholds like up north in Bellevue, for example. And I don't think there's any way for these big companies to just pull out of all of these corporate leases and whatnot and it not have a huge economic impact in the commercial real estate space.
Absolutely. I mean, like there's two avenues we can take this conversation. I want to identify the first one. So similar to what you're talking about with Microsoft, their Vacasa is located in Portland, and they just announced the other day that they were laying off a bunch. It was like 400 workers, and 13 of them are based in Portland. And so they're like, they're letting go all these people. Well, I can tell you from personal experience, I have a friend that owns a short-term rental in Sun River, Oregon. And Sun River is just outside, it's just south of Bend. It's a resort community, basically a whole community of rental homes. I mean, people do reside there, but there's hundreds of short-term rentals in that community. And my friend was telling me, he's like, yeah, in 2020 and 2021, he goes, I made like 60,000 a year renting out my place. And I only rented it for like the summer, like Labor Day to Memorial Day, and then a couple holidays. Wow. He's like, I couldn't beg, borrow, and steal to get anyone in this last year. And I was like, what happened? And, that's not the only place. So I think some of the short-term rental stuff is also kind of simmering off. So I think, Vacasa went and hired all these people because there's all this demand over the last 2 years, and they had to fill it. They had to find someone to work and do the work. And I think Microsoft was the same way. you have to find these people to fulfill this demand. And then now everything's just like, okay, like people are kind of going back. I don't know where the people went in Sun River, if they're like on planes more, traveling to other places. But that's not the only person I've talked to that said that their rental really suffered this last year.
Yes.
So
yeah, and places are locking down, making restrictions harder to even have short-term rentals as well. So it's not like it's getting any easier on those folks either.
Well, and then just to top it off, I think it was it April of last year? Yeah, April 1st of last year, they added extra points if you were to your loan, if you were ever going to, in costs, if you were ever going to buy a second home or investment property. So it's even more expensive to purchase now a second home. And they just did the exact same thing to conventional loans. If you've got good credit, sorry, you're going to pay more. It's getting crazy. I just, whatever. And like the whole Microsoft thing in the commercial real estate space, we've seen it here. People don't need storefronts anymore because people can work from home. I know some companies are requiring their people to move back, and they're like, you have to move back. If you don't move back, find something else. They're like, okay, I'll find something else.
Yeah.
So letting go of that overhead when people don't need to be in anymore. So this is kind of the same thing that happened when we went from box store to Amazon. Like Walmart, Target, all those big box stores, they had to start competing with Amazon because people could just stay home and order whatever they wanted. So then the stores were like, okay, how do I compete with that? Because you can go to a store and get like instant gratification, but Amazon, you can kind of do the same thing, even though their Prime has gotten pretty bad lately. My Prime deliveries have taken like 4 or 5 days, and I'm a little upset about it.
Well, they're laying off 18,000 people, so it's going to get slower.
Oh, great.
Well, so speaking of people pulling back out of space, I was doing a little bit of reading, and I still feel like people are investing time and energy into entertainment and entertaining themselves. I think maybe a little healthier or a little more frugally. But I saw this report that the Seattle Mariners are opening up a new facility that is like right across the street from T-Mobile Park. Victory Halls is a part of it. It is just a massive area. It's a 9,500 square foot complex, and it is going to be actually open on opening day. Let me get I'm going to find a picture of it here for us.
Opening day of baseball, MLB season, or?
Yes. Yeah. For opening day for the baseball season.
So that'll be April.
Yeah. So here's kind of some different looks at kind of what they're considering doing, some different renderings. Overall, pretty cool little, place. But I thought it was interesting, the Seattle Kraken have done some additional spaces to really kind of draw more people out, and the Sounders have done the same. This one's kind of unique because they're doing like batting cages. It's got an open field space. They're going to be hosting clinics and camps, corporate events, and then like a ton of activities kind of ahead of Mariners, Seahawks, Sounders games to draw more people in. And so what I thought it was interesting is in a time where a lot of the corporate entities are like really pulling back, I'm seeing a lot of the sporting teams pour more into the communities and kind of go out further as far as outreach, entertainment. They're making more cost options. I mean, I'm pretty sure I paid like $24 for a single Truly for my wife at an event at Climate Pledge a couple of weeks ago. And like, I didn't mind at all, but you can't get me to buy a $10 drink at a restaurant. So like, I love this move. And there are a couple of reasons. One, because we attend those games every year. It is something that we spend money on, but also SoDo has really kind of taken like a blistering hit. Like SoDo has been affected in a really cruddy way. Like if you just look at these numbers here, here's SoDo over the last year. Like the area has not done particularly well. You see just a consistent downward trend. So I really like these teams investing some effort into the community. My kind of thought is your opinion on some of these economics. Do you think more of these, as these teams and these private groups like our sports events invest more into these neighborhoods that are not doing as well? Do you think it's going to make a difference turn around in the real estate market? Or do you think because it's more commercialized, more touristy driven, that there won't be as much of a return? I'm just kind of interested in what your thought on Foresight is.
Well, I think it's a good thing that teams are doing this, because people, we've been cooped up for the past 3 years. People want to do things. They want experiences. I'm personally more of I'm more of an experience gal. I like to go out and do things versus like get material items. I like to travel. I like to see places. I like to, what you're saying. I would love to do something like that. Go see batting cages and do that kind of cool stuff. It's paying for an experience. So they're looking at also, another way to generate revenue, not only to grow the area, but to generate revenue, another pillar of their business, and see if this works. Well, people love those teams. It's going to work. And yes, they are investing in the area. So I think, personally, I don't know if have you been to Chicago around Wrigley Field?
Yes.
And seen like the houses around there, and like there's like a bunch of like townhouses and stuff. So I have some friends that used to live in that area, and they would rent in that area. And those houses, when the baseball team's doing good, those houses, like the price of those houses goes through the roof, because it's just, they're within walking distance. It's fun. It's something close by. And the people that buy those houses, they want those types of experiences. So you're not going to find me, who likes to live on a farm, buying a house next to Wrigley, but like the people that like those experiences and like to be close to them. Yeah. And it will drive those prices up. It will help those neighborhoods, because you're bringing more dollars into the neighborhood in revenue. So people are going to ultimately they're going to enjoy their activities. They're like, oh, it'd be so cool if I lived down the street, or it'd be so cool to do this. This neighborhood's really nice now. And it'll bring more, and it'll develop more. So yeah, I think it's a good thing all around for that neighborhood. Will they see it overnight? No. Will they see it in a couple of years? Probably.
Yeah, I think the big winner here is the Mariners, in my opinion. And the reason it more so than the community is the Mariners did really well last year. And if I've learned anything about Tacoma, Seattle area sports, is that it's that when a team does decent one year, everything gets hella expensive the next year. Mm-hmm. So the Mariners making the playoffs for the first time in a really long time this year, and opening this new space with corporate rentals and clinics and all of that. They're going to make money hand over fist, in my opinion. So, and I love new experiences and new opportunities out there. So definitely, if you're in our area, if you're in Pierce King County, swing by, check it out. If you're watching this, let me know what you think about it when it does open up. I'd like to hear differing opinions. I'm pretty sure I'm going to love it and probably spend too much money there. I'm pretty sure Cass would just drink wine and hang out. So it could definitely be too.
Hey, I used to play softball. Okay. So I can hit a baseball too.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Name one player on the Mariners.
I didn't say I liked Seattle sports. I grew up in Minnesota, honey. Kirby Puckett was my man.
That's all right. We'll let it go this one time. All right. So the last thing I kind of have on the list for today, and I have a short form video on this, I think really kind of coming up on TikTok and all that, is this really interesting poll that came out from some pollsters. And Cass, I think you can comment on this very well, just because of Portland, Oregon, and stuff being a little differently. There was a poll taken, and we obviously have a really big issue with cost of living here. We have a affordability crisis. There's no way around any of that. So polls taken, and about 70% of people said that they would be in support of changing zoning from just single family residence to allowing multifamily in the same neighborhoods and on the same streets. Now that is limited to duplex, triplex, and quadplexes. Now I know you down there, you've already kind of experienced some of this. Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's great.
So I'm going to go ahead and step out on a limb and say, could this help our affordability crisis? I think so. Could this create more homes for people that don't have them right now? Yes. I know way up north in Everett, they're about to build like a 40-story tower of just condos. So everyone's building up. And this is looking like it's going to go to the House of Representatives here pretty soon as an option. So for everybody in Washington, like, what struggles have you seen down there once this kind of thing was enacted?
So the thing is like you have these very well-to-do neighborhoods in like Portland, Laurelhurst. Laurelhurst is one of them. And now you can knock down a house and put a quadplex in this historically registered district, like historically registered, the whole neighborhood. And they're just going to let them put a quadplex up, and like it won't look anything like any of the other buildings in there. And so that's where a lot of the hesitation is coming from. The people is seeing that, yes, it is going to create more homes, but like one of the problems in Oregon is the urban growth boundary. So people that don't know about Portland and what's going on, they have an urban growth boundary that they will not let you build outside of, and because they want to keep everybody in. So they keep changing zoning and doing overlays to like basically make it as dense as possible. Well, there's some places in Portland, like nobody has a driveway, everybody parks on the street. And then they want to put a quadplex up where you're going to put cars for 4 more houses.
Yes.
So then what they're doing is they're doing that, and then they're forcing people into public transportation because they're trying to get people to use public transportation more.
Yeah.
So we're just going to make it as dense as possible.
That's what this is. I got this pulled up here. It says, if passes is cities between 25,000 and 700,000 people will have to allow 2 units per lot or 4 units if that lot is within half a mile of major transit stop or community amenities like parks, if the development meets certain affordability requirements. So I think, and you look here again, of 75,000 more major populations will have to allow 4 or 6 units as well. So basically what they're trying to do is, it kind of sounds like they're trying to put these more affordable homes into already established communities, link them close to public transit so those people have a way to get around as well. So, I think like for my town of Bonney Lake, this is not something that's really going to be too affected. Public transit's nothing here. But if I were to be in Tacoma, if I were to be in Tukwila or, Auburn, things like that, they can then take those same requirements, say, hey, you're close to the light rail, so boom, here's an opportunity for it. And you're right. I think that's what you would see, because as an investor, why would I not put up a quadplex that I'm going to rent out to 4 people versus building a single family home? Like, what's the incentive?
Here's the caveat though. So when the appraisal comes, right? So you've got all these single family homes, you got the one quadplex. This single family home wants to sell their house. What's the best and highest use for that lot? How do they appraise it?
Yeah,
they should be appraising it as a quadplex, regardless of what the house is. So then your appraisals aren't going to start making it. And then they're going to be like, I'm sorry, we're not going to give you the money for this loan to buy the single family home because the highest and best use is a fourplex.
Mm-hmm.
So then people can't sell their homes anymore because no one can buy them.
And then also they're not, I think there also is some concern for some homeowners who aren't a part of the 68% or whatever that agreed with it, that would have to say, I don't necessarily know that I want just a bunch of rentals popped up all in the middle of my neighborhood, and the struggles that could go with that. I mean, you talk about parking, for example. If you're building a quadplex on a single family home lot, dude, you're not parking 4 to 8 cars in one driveway.
No.
You're lining the streets with
Yep.
it.
And usually, like with the zoning, like they don't take that into, at least I've seen in Portland, they don't take it into consideration because they want to force you onto public transportation.
Yeah. Which explains the incentive to move things closer to places that have public transit or parks and things like that. So,
but I mean, if I was to move into one of those quadplexes, like I have to have a car for my personal job. Like, it's not like I'm not choosing to use public transportation because I do like using it when I can, but like my job requires me to drive all over the place. So I have to have a car.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine what life would be like without a car as a real estate agent.
Sorry, let me get on the bus. I'll be there in an hour.
Maybe if I make this bus on time. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to take public transit like up to the UW games because I don't want to fight the parking. I'm going to take it to some shows at like Soto Show Box. Like if I don't want to deal with downtown, there are definitely times where it makes sense. But I think when you look at these towns of like around 75,000, like those towns are not so big and so congested that the public transportation aspect necessarily needs to be in place.
Yeah.
If you're living inside of Seattle or you're living inside of Tacoma, no, that makes a little more sense. But a town of 75,000 people, I mean, you're not going to be super dependent, in my opinion, on just, public transit to get you where you're going and what you're doing. So
yeah,
that's just my 2 cents on it. But yeah, that's really kind of what I had on the plate for us today, guys. I really just wanted to touch on a few big things between layoffs and things like that. So Cass, would you send us out?
Sure. Well, I had fun today. This was a good talk. It's amazing how much, even though we are farther apart, like how similar our markets are. And I feel like a lot of people are going through the same growing pains that we are too. So I just want to thank everybody for joining us. We are the Upper Left Show. If you've got any more questions for Austin or myself about kind of what's going on, if you got comments about anything we talked about today, let us know. Drop it down in the comments, send us text messages, emails, whatever you guys want. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channels. Austin's had some really good videos lately that I've thoroughly enjoyed. And
thank you.
They've been really good. I've learned a lot more about Bonney Lake after visiting last week too.
Turns out I'm not making everything up.
More than just videos. But anyways, we will have our next show on February 27th at 2 p.m. Pacific, like usual. So again, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to tune in and hang out with Austin and myself. We are the Upper Left Show, and you guys make it a great week. Okay?
See you guys.